Welcome back and welcome to Sexy Business Podcast. I'm your host, Eisve.
And I'm Karolina. Let's talk spicy this time. Let's talk about taboo topics. And the very first one and the most important one is pleasure. Why do you think, Eisve, pleasure is still such a big taboo in our society?
Yeah, so let's just think about sex. And here I'm going to use man and female in a sex. And how many men experience pleasure in sex? And like every time is a pleasurable experience. And if I ask a woman who is actually true and honest, a lot of them, and I'm not even talking about orgasm here, that like men tend to like orgasm much easier and like, yeah, it's just how it is. But in general, a lot of women feel like they're having sex out of like obligation or something, and it's not a truly enjoyable experience, whereas I would think one of the biggest pleasure points in our lives.
Yes, totally agree. So let's explore. In our society, it's so much more common to talk about what men wants and men leads. And for some reason, the woman is the one that has to be submissive, the woman that has to be quiet. And, there is such a different norms for males and females in just on a regular daily basis that there's not even enough education for women to learn about our own bodies.
Mm-hmm.
What we like, how does it feel, which feelings we like, which we don't, because as you just stepped in, that it's not only about orgasm, it's about wanting to have sex at that time or with that person, and is it led by wants or pressure?
Or specific things in sex. Because when I started talking with you about this, I was like, mentioning things and this and that. And as you said, there are no taboos. Like, if you like something in sex, sometimes people are like, if I ask, like, what's your kink? They think that, like, I'm normal. Like, there's nothing, wrong with me, so I don't have kinks. And the king is just like, what you like is, like, what is your pressure points? Is it your neck? Is it like, we are all so different. Mm-hmm. And when I started talking to you and I was like, so this and that. And I love that we can have this conversation very openly, but you were like, there's this that you do and that you can do. And like, like you were like, I have been living under the rock or something.
Yes.
But that's how a lot of people feel because, as you said, like, why is that like women have not explored what is happening in their bodies? And I'm just thinking maybe because like the penis is kind of like out and you can like, it's visible and it's there. And like when the female pleasure points, not even the clitoris, but like, like a lot of pleasures are like inside, as you said, like a sensation that like, I want to have sex.
Yeah.
What drives that? Like, so how do we explore that?
Yes.
When everything is kind of like in the inside and it's not just like out there in the plain sight.
Yeah, so as you mentioned already, it's about the body. It's what we like, where to touch. And this is about exploring yourself. Mm-hmm. There's not much information actually. Okay, now the technology is moving forward and we can start finding more things about it. But it's still so kind of secluded, because each individual, obviously, they like different things. But there's a lot of things that women like in common,
Mm-hmm.
Because of the process of getting excited, I think. Men gets excited in different way than the woman. So the woman needs to be like, how would you call it? Some people say prepped, So there has to be more kissing, more touching certain parts of the body for the woman to build up before the intercourse. Where men, they're a bit more like, I'm ready to go. as you say, because it's out there and you can see he's ready, but the woman you don't, it's inside. So it takes a bit more time of preparation.
And there are no rules because I'm more like a man. I'm like, okay, I want to go on, just now. But that's where I think it's very important, because to me, the pleasure was more like, oh, I'm seeking the pleasure from another person, kind of, like, oh, what is there for you to give me? And when I started going to like Tantra and so on, that was like, so it does start with me. So that's what you said, like, exploring the body by myself.
Yes.
Like when I was asked, like, okay, so if you want to be touched that specific way by a man, do you give that touch to yourself? I'm not even telling, like here about masturbation, just like the touch, like how I want it to like be sensed on my body. I think in the pleasure ways, I've used to think that like everything is like that's coming to me, where now it's more like I'm radiating that pleasure because I know how to create pleasure in my life, not only in sex, through sex, but through pleasurable experiences. And to me, pleasure is a lot about receiving. And even like receiving money. I think it's like pleasure, how much pleasure I can receive in my life, that's related to how much money and abundance I can receive as well.
Yeah, it's very much what you said about Tantra experiences is the same with like Kundalini. It's about the energy that we already have in the body. And actually, all that energy is finances, is creativity, it's the heat, and sex is a part of it, because that's what people don't realize, that, it has to be a flow, there has to be a movement of this energy to receive all kind of pleasures, as you say, And it's very beautiful what you said, that we need to give ourselves that touch that we want to receive, because if we don't know what we like, how can we communicate to another person?
Yeah.
Oh, I like to be that way. No, I don't know if I, don't realize what I like.
And something that you pointed out where you said like, oh, maybe they have different preferences than me. So how can, like, if I have never explored things by myself, obviously exploring with somebody else, it's like more vulnerable. If I'm here by myself, I can do so many things, and like nobody's watching me, nobody's shaming me, even like because the shame usually starts to, like, from yourself.
Yeah.
And it's just easier, to like try things out and then bring it with another person into sex or into other ways.
Yeah. And this experience, I think it was so funny what you said, I live under the rock. Because to be honest, recently it was my first time I went to the sex shop. And
with me.
With you. And I think because obviously you and me, we have a bit of an age gap, and I think different generation moves different levels openness. Okay, so let's say if we take our grandparents, then our parents, the level of openness was totally different, but it's the same for us, I think, And I was the one who went from one long relationship to another very long marriage, So obviously, I think once you are with one person, and it was more for me, I grew up like this, that it was like things not talked about it, I was more scared to explore. It's not like I've never seen, like, let's say, sex shops and stuff, but I think I was more scared to think about, okay, but what about me? Because for me, it was always like, oh, sex, yeah, it's good, but it's more important for men, Even that in my head, it was like there. But I think since now I started to talk about those things with you, with other friends who are capable of talking those things, because not all the women are.
Yeah.
That's where it started to open up for me. I was like, okay, yeah, so it's very important that I feel good also, and yeah, it was very funny experience going with you to that shop and looking for the things, because I wouldn't even know what to look for in there, and it was amazing that it's such a variety of things for women also, because you always think that, everything surrounds by men, but actually it's a lot of stuff for us. And yeah, like we will start exploring, like this.
I think pleasure in general, it's like so related to self-confidence and like being confident in yourself. I'm not sure if I could agree that like it's different generations, because I think like what I learned from my parents, they never tabooed this topic to me, So like I kind of like never felt that there's something that I shouldn't explore. But also what helped me, like now when you mentioned that, oh, you have been in long-term relationships, I think where I brought the most freedom and exploration was where like I wasn't in any relationship. Because I was trying to build my pleasure bridge through another person for a long time. And then I was like, oh, okay, it's not dependent on another person. And I've learned that when I'm trying to improve the relationship with another person, actually I'm trying to improve the relationship with myself. So the relationship with pleasure also started for me like that. And yeah, I think it was super, super cool when we went to the sex shop. And I just mentioned to you, like, like for me, it feels like such a casual thing.
Yeah.
And some people are like, oh my gosh, like, how are you even talking about these things? Like, I had my birthday celebration. I was wearing this thing. I bought this in the sex shop, but like, it's so cute, And I just like put it like this. And somebody commented like, oh, it's so cute. And I was like, oh yeah, I got it in the sex shop. And the conversation just like ended there. It was like end zone. And I was like, there are cute things there as well, and there are like pleasure things. So like, why are you avoiding this? Wait, when I'm speaking, there's like this, and maybe I could call it misconception, that women want less sex, so less pleasure. How when somebody's like, oh, the woman wants less sex than me, if it's a man, I've heard it a lot. And I'm like, and and they come up with whatever story, and I'm like, show me a person who wants more pain and less pleasure in their life. It means something is off.
That's true.
Like, if you love chocolate, if you love ice cream, okay, there's like a certain threshold how much of that you can eat. Same as with sex. But like, would you be like, no, I would rather, I don't know, not have pleasure? Yeah. Even in life, oh, I'm tired, and you just want to take a bath. No, I'm not going to let myself do that. And I think that's where it starts. A lot of women don't let themselves feel pleasure in like very little daily things,
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree. And if we're talking about in relationship, I think, let's say example for me, obviously when you meet someone, it's a beginning and there's like loads of heat and things and stuff. But after that, obviously the routine hits for me, the kids, the family and everything, hits and stuff. But also I think what I found from listening from a lot of female friends, that as you mentioned in the very beginning of the podcast, men feel the pressure, the pleasure nearly always, okay? How many women faking it? And I think that's what happened in a relationship. When the woman doesn't enjoy sex anymore, it's not like she doesn't want sex. She just doesn't enjoy it this way, that particular way. And for example, men sometimes get into this, like for me, okay, from my experience, my ex-husband, I was 14 years in a marriage, okay? And in the beginning was a bit more like a foreplay and everything. And then the years pass by, it's like quickie. I mean, for the woman, quick is not always works. And it becomes like, I don't enjoy it anymore, so I don't want to do it anymore, Like for me, like this, what's happening in the longer relationship, why women don't want sex. And I started not to want it anymore. It's not because I don't want sex, because I know I'm not going to enjoy it. It's going to be fast and I'm going to be rushed and I'm not ready. And,
like that's my whole point. Why didn't you prioritize your pleasure where you're like, oh, I need to address it. I'm going to give you an example. That's where like the men sometimes are like, oh, what do I do with this? Because I'm going to go and like, oh, this is the condom that I like because I know it's going to feel good and so on.
Yeah.
And then, you know, they have never had a person who's like, oh, you know, my pleasure matters. Like, and any man wants to pleasure a woman. Like, that's the fact. And they like feed it so much on our pleasure. Yes. So it's not like they don't want to give that to us. But a woman, and myself included, like I expanded much more on that topic. But if I'm not prioritizing that to me, how then a person can give me something that I'm not even like putting as a priority, you know? As you said, like, oh, okay, it's not pleasurable to me. But why didn't you then just like, you know, came to a person and be like, hey, you know,
Yeah.
my pleasure is like also important than that.
I think it was communication. It was downside of me. I don't know. I was scared to say things like that. I think I never learned how to communicate openly in the things I like. So the first thing was that I wasn't sure what I like it. So how can I express to the other person what I like? Another thing, it was lack of communication. You know, I didn't know how to say it because we've been so long and everything was fine. And I was like, okay, so now suddenly I'm gonna say I don't like this anymore or that. Yeah, it's blame on me, you know, because I just didn't have enough courage to say that. But also at that time, I don't think I had friends like you, so open. I have another friend, I'm not gonna mention her, just for protection. But with her, I can also go in such a deep topics, like raw, completely raw things, you know. And I didn't have, at that time, I didn't have friends like that, you know. I had a friend, one of my friends says, oh, I only have sex on the occasion when it's like a Christmas or New Year or something celebration. And then I have another friend also who is like, yeah, every 6 months, that's like normal for us. So for me, I was like, okay, maybe I'm just putting too much thought into it, you know, maybe we shouldn't talk about it.
Yeah.
I think that's what's all those little things together. I just didn't have with anyone to talk like so openly about the things, what I feel and I want to feel.
Yeah, because as you said, like, you know, I was like a kid, like raising questions. I would be like, oh, you know, like this and that. And then some of my friends would be like, oh, you talk about is sex. And I'm like, okay, but it matters to me, you know, like there's something that I'm curious about, that I'm unsure about. How is it for you? You know, and I asked, and then some women came to me like, I don't even know if I ever experienced an orgasm. Oh, and then I was like, oh, you know, because it's not even talked about. There's nothing like on plain sight on the table. So I was like, so how is it actually, you know? And a lot of people, it's a very vulnerable topic.
Very.
But I think the more I started talking about it, the more I uncovered and the more I was like, I started feeling like way better about it than before. And, you know, what you got in the sex shop, I think in this, you know, when people think about sex shops, they're like, oh, it's kind of like a dirty, like, I don't even know what they have about it. There's so many amazing sex shops, and like what we got there.
Yeah.
Was for us.
Yes.
It wasn't like, okay, we got something for like to explore it with other people, but like the first thing where like just self-pleasure.
Yeah.
Tap more into that, deeper into that, like more into the, and like from a spiritual part of point, it's like, you know, womb work from a woman.
Yeah, and lighten up that energy in us, you know, and self exploration and finding yourself more so you can express more. So continuously, as you said, you know, the thing we got, it's for us, but we can also use it as a partner, because, you know, some men, they get very upset when the woman has something for herself. You know, in terms of toys, they're like, oh, so am I not enough? Why do you need something else? But it's not about that, you know, it's about different people like different things. And if you can openly explore new things with your partner, I think it's amazing. You know, it's like a ground for the stronger relationship and stronger connection, you know. So yeah, it was really like open experience for me, and talking to you about it. And as you said, like really nicely, that more you talked with your friends deeper, more you got to know yourself also. No, you opened up for yourself. And that's what I was lack, actually. That's what I was lack.
I think like my maybe, how to say, where I benefited a lot is that what I see, you know, people are so used to living in frames, how they go to the work. And because I've never been into that like workforce, I was like, oh yeah, I have so much like freedom, you know, and I can do whatever I want there. So why not there? And like, I don't think that sex as a topic, of course, there are boundaries and like whatever, you know, like there's always like, no, stop, this is what I prefer and so on. So I'm not talking about that. But because my life is not so much framed and like put into the box, I didn't bring that there, where a lot of people, you know, they are so used to like, you know,
Yes.
kind of like performing how they are in the world. And that's what they bring to the most vulnerable parts, where like, okay, I need to perform in a way, as you said, like, you know, woman comes with the expectation that they need to fake something. Why would you fake something that is like, you know, so pure and is just so wild as well? And I think the scariest part is to allow yourself to be wild, because like freedom is where you like, you don't know, you know, you don't know what the outcome is. There's nothing you actually like chase. That's like the true pleasure, where like, you know, just like if you have this like beautiful touch, well, you're not chasing, I don't know, the hype. And a lot of people think that the pleasure is the hype.
Yeah.
Like making, even like, imagine like this, how can you make your whole day pleasurable? Like how you move, how you make yourself breakfast. That's why I said like it starts with such a little things. I was like, do I give myself pleasure in like my daily things? Because I'm very much like, go, do, you know, push, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
The mental, like, yeah.
That's true. Or it's always like, I need to do this, I need to do that. And you forget about yourself. Yeah, you're right. You know, like little things happens every day, through the day, you know. And where do you give yourself this time and allow yourself, you know, to feel good? To feel, it's like a scary thing, yeah? No? It's like it's forbidden, you know. It's like you so taught through the life, you put in this box, in that frame, that you're like just doing this and that and that, and it's very hard to come out of that box and try to explore more things, you know.
You know, I love this thing when I was told, you know, when I was tuning in more into my body, and it's also like related to pleasure mentally, physiologically in any way, like move towards your goosebumps. And I was like I forgot, you know, how to even feel that. And now it just makes sense, you know, like if I feel like, you know, like when we talk sometimes and sometimes like I get the goosebumps.
Yeah.
Oh, I know, it's an amazing thing. And that's what I mean. Like, yeah, if you don't have that outside of the bedroom, like, okay, where's the pleasure in your life? Can you receive more? Can I receive more? Just to have it like on a daily basis. And as I said, like, yeah, it's very much connected to abundance as well.
Yeah.
We feel like you know, when people sometimes, oh, it's too good to be true. Why we have this mentality that like I need to be in a surviving mode? Okay, like from human evolution perspective, of course, we have always been on that survival mode, and only now we're living in such a comfortable space, but the brain still works the same. So it's mentally, it's more natural to be on survival rather than thriving.
Yeah.
So I needed to learn myself like how to be that, oh, thriving is actually a new normal. So, you know, having pleasure from my, like, you know, even like when I go to the coffee, like the full life experience change when, like, you know, Tony Robbins says, like, we as human beings, we want to move towards pleasure and away from pain.
Yeah.
But if I have grew up thinking that survival is like, you know, and that's how the brain is created, like survive, 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 it just doesn't feel natural. So the pleasure can feel unnatural.
Unnatural. Yeah. 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 And I think is one of the cases that's why it's a taboo. That's why it's something forbidden. That's why it's so not open, you know? Because as I said, you know, even with not all the women, you can speak about those things. Some of the women are so closed And, obviously they grow up probably in these type of conditions why they are like this. But yeah, maybe that's just starting with those little steps to explore yourself on a daily basis, letting yourself feel. And again, we're coming back into the same thing, tune in your body, tune in back into yourself for possibilities. But yeah, through the experiences we learn, and sometimes, if two people are ready to explore more things, I think you can reach certain parts of you that you're like, you can't even imagine that you have it,
Of course.
Sometimes people can say, oh, maybe you're boring, or yeah, this is not like this. But if you're not fully open, obviously, if you don't let yourself open up enough, other people will not see it in you. And the same with the partners, like maybe it could have been better, but I didn't fully open up with my partner about it. And how am I expecting to be different,
Yeah, and I think, I mean, like, I can only meet myself as deep as I can go. It's the same with another person. And I think even though we're kind of more talking about like how it is for a woman, because I'm open about this topic, I also know, it's very nice to me when somebody asks me like what, like, the pleasure is for me, what I like and so on. But then I also see that it's sometimes a taboo for men as well. If I, ask that thing, some of them, they can just point out, like, oh, this, and that, and like that. And others are like silent. Probably they have never been asked that before. They have never asked that themselves. So I think, the starting point is like, what is pleasure to me? In sex, outside of sex, and I would say explore it outside of sex first, and like small things.
Yeah.
And yeah,
but it's a beautiful question, because it's also fits for men also, as you said, maybe they don't ask themselves also this type of question. And that's why once you asked, it was like, what's going on? The confusion arises. So communication is the key for that, and talking and getting to know yourself, getting to know the other people's experiences, because we do learn from each other's experiences also. Like, I'm learning from yours, you're learning something from mine, I'm learning from other. And that's why I think the community is so important, that we really missing in this type of setting of this life. Everything is fast, and everybody is like so separate, and everybody is so alone, and I can do it on my own, this and that. That's where we're missing this connection.
I think it's very important to have a community where it's like kind of like women's circle, men's circle, where you can share it in like
safe space.
In safe space, but also like, oh, okay, like when I share with you, you learn something from me, I learn something from you, and you can be like, oh, so that's okay. That type of sex is fine. And there's like, like, I think those things like open you up. So ask us, like, I think because what you mentioned, like when I was asked the first time, oh, what is the pleasure to you? What do you like? I think like, my starting point was like in bed, like in sex. And I was like, I didn't know that answer. So I started working on that. And then I was like, okay, what is the pleasure for me in my life? And like there's a lot of guilt, because the pleasure, it's just feel good. You go and you do more of what feels good. And I don't know why there's so much shame about just like feeling good and like going for thriving. So asking that question yourself, and maybe just sitting down, I would say sit down with a journal and just like write things out, because the paper cannot judge you. So be like,
beautiful. So beautiful. Yeah, ask your questions and just write them down. Wow. And the next step would be probably, start with yourself, start with your own touches, start with exploring your own body. And that's the next step would be the communication and the partnerships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we can delve a little bit more into that into another episodes.
Yes. Thank you so much for watching, for listening. And yeah, as always, please leave your comments or insights or the themes you would like us to discuss. And we will see you on our next podcast.
Yeah. If you want to share what the pleasure is for you, that would be super lovely to read. And we're always so grateful that you're tuning in. So follow and subscribe for getting notification for the next episodes.